Yo, what's up, guys? Travis Peters here. I got something coming. This is going to be a good one for you today. We're going to be talking about what does it actually mean to be a good steward? Now, before you think oh, Travis, I already know all this. I'm going to show you something today. I'm going to show you a new take, a new perspective that I think is going to shift how you see everything when it comes to being a good steward. And here's what's cool about this. If you get what I'm going to teach you today, your life will change. Things will go up from here. All right. Now, before I get started, I want to tell you about a website I have called financialincrease101.com. All right. What I've done is I've put together a free guide that's going to show you how to stop living paycheck to paycheck, how to activate God's promise for increase, how to live worry-free financially. Aren't you tired of worrying about money? Staying up late at night, fighting with the spouse, being distracted. You're trying to hang out with your kids, but all you can do is think about business and money. And I get it. I've been there. Over the last 15 years, God has shown me and my wife some really cool revelation on money, how it flows, and how it works in the kingdom. And I'm telling you, nobody else is teaching it like this. All right, I'm not trying to teach you how to live a budgeted life where you live small now and maybe one day you live big. I'm going to show you how to live a life of increase, abundance, and overflow now and later. That way, you're freed up to work on what God's called you to work on. It's going to be great. Head over to financialincrease101.com, grab the free guide, share it with somebody you know who also needs some financial increase in their life, and we'll get you started on that path. Now, we're going to talk about being a good steward today. And if I was to say, hey, where in the Bible, what set of scriptures, where would you go if you were going to teach somebody about good stewardship? And most people would say, let's go to the parable of the talents. Now, this is a really cool, I'm going to read it to you here. And again, you're going to see something you've never seen before. The parable of the talents. Well, let's address something first. In order to be a good steward, this is good. Am I getting ahead of myself? I'm going to say it anyway. In order to be a good steward, so a steward is somebody who manages the things, possessions, or affairs of, in this case, in the Bible times, they'd say their master or their boss, right? The person they work for, the Lord. You basically manage their things and affairs and money in the same manner that your boss would. I'm a manager of things just like my master would manage things. So my job is to quote unquote kind of be like the mini boss, the mini manager, right? Your boss above you, he's got something for you to steward. And my role, your role, our role is to manage that stuff as though he would if he were here. So this poses an interesting position, though. First off, you have to know what the nature, if you will, of your boss, of the person that you are stewarding for, being a caretaker for. You have to know how that person operates so that you can operate like a mini version of them. Let me give you an interesting example. I personally had two bosses back when I had a day job. Gosh, over 8 years ago, praise the Lord. I've been free from the day job, doing what I love. God's good. But one of them was different. They were different. And here's what I mean is, when I was working for one boss, he was very frugal, you could say. Meaning everything he wanted the cheapest one. Save money, save money, save money, save money. Okay? So for him, he'd give me the credit card, and I remember I was opening up two new locations for him. And I'm stewarding over the money he has to launch these new locations. Well, we had to buy furniture and security cameras and computer stuff and IT things and printers and all that stuff. Well, he wants to go in and find the cheapest thing you can find. Let's save the most money. So when I was stewarding the money for him, that's how I would go and shop. When I'd go buy things for him, we'd go find whatever's the cheapest price, cheapest. And sometimes, yes, that equated to a cheaper quality of thing. But that's how he wanted to do it. Another boss I worked for, when I used to sell new construction homes, was the exact opposite. And this guy was a Christian too. Both were Christians. The second guy I'm describing now was more of a word of faith Christian. And whenever I'm trying to put this in a way to understand it. Basically, he wanted you to buy the best of everything. So that's his mentality was, when you go out and shop for us. So we'd go, sometimes I need to buy things for one of the offices or for a home we had for sale or some decorations for one of the model homes, things like that. He wanted me to go and buy the best. If I came back with a cheap product or a cheap quality product, he would literally reprimand me. He is literally like yelled at me with anger for me buying a cheap thing, because he truly believed that everything we do represents and honors God. So if we have a model home and we have cheap products in there, low quality things, to him that represents a low quality God, a cheap God who can't afford nice things. And so he believes God is a God of abundance. So he's like, when we go and buy the best things because that's who God is in our lives. So this is interesting. I'm in an interesting spot here. If I was to go for my second boss and go buy something cheap, I would get reprimanded. But with my first boss, if I went and bought the expensive, nice thing, I would get reprimanded. So which one's a better steward? Because a steward, if you remember, is somebody who manages the affairs of their master just like that master would manage the affairs. I'm becoming a mini version of them so they can send me out, do their work for them, and operate like them. So the only way that I could be a good steward would be to know the nature of my boss or of my master. I have to know how he would operate or she would operate in order for me to be a good steward. You've never thought about it like this before, have you? This is interesting. This is different. So when we're talking about being a good steward of God's money, we have to know how God operates. We have to know his nature so we can manage his affairs, his stuff, his things, his money, as though he himself would be managing them. We have to be a mini version of him as we manage his stuff. You've never thought about it like this, because odds are when you think I have to be a better steward, you think that means I have to spend as little money as possible. But what scripture is that? Where does it show God's nature that that's how he operates? In fact, if you go back and you look at when Solomon was building the temple for God, remember David planned it, he didn't get to carry it out, Solomon began to carry it out. If you remember, go back. Here, I'm going to look something up real quick. Okay, if you remember in First Chronicles and a little bit in First Kings, basically Solomon's talking about building the temple. Well, I pulled up here on some websites, looked at a couple. Approximately the cost of this temple, and remember, God instructed him everything. He was like, here's the wood I want you to use. Here's the silver. I want you to use this much gold, bronze, ivory, cedar wood. Goes on and on and on. The cost of this temple would be an astonishing $194 billion, $404 million. It had ruby, onyx, silver, gold, platinum, all of those things. The nicest things on earth. God said, hey, I want you to build my temple, and I want you to use the luxury items, the nicest things. If we were to go to a church now and you saw gold and silver, like true gold, not just like something painted to look gold, but like true gold, silver, rubies, all these things, you'd probably get mad. And you'd be like, well, what a waste of money. Yet God literally instructed them, here's what I want you to use. Use these materials, the best in the land. And this plays into God's nature and how he sees money and wealth and nice things and stuff like this. And I want you to have that in you, because if we were to, there are literally religions who are, when they go and build their temples, their churches, their buildings, they go in saying, how can I build the cheapest one possible? I feel like they don't know God's nature. And I'm not saying there's not a place to try to get good deals and save some money here and there, but there's a huge difference when we think of get the cheapest thing versus get the nicest thing, or get the one that saves money versus get the best thing, get the best in the land. Let's honor God with the best. Let's build him a church and a temple with the best materials. Let's honor him and show him that, it's a different way of thinking. And when it comes to how do we be a good steward, again, we have to know God's nature when it comes to money. Now, let's dive in to Matthew 25:14, the parable of the talents. You can handle some scripture, right? And there'll be more in this series because there's a lot to say here, but just listen to a few of these things. For it is like a man who is about to take a journey, and he called his servants together and entrusted them with his possessions. All right, and I'm reading this from the Amplified. To one, he gave 5 talents. Now, I've got my Dake study Bible here, and in today's money, 5 talents, see, a lot of people just think it's a coin. 5 talents were worth about $145,000 and $145,425. That's 5 talents. All right. He gave one 5 talents, to another 2, which was worth 58,000, and to another 1, which is worth 29,000. So even the guy with 1 talent still had 29 grand. Each according to his own ability. And then he went on a journey. Now, the Lord showed this to me years ago. Each according to his own ability. This is an ability can be learned, can be earned, and can be acquired. There are times when you didn't have an ability. At one point, you couldn't whistle. You couldn't snap your fingers. You couldn't tie your shoes. You couldn't ride a bike, but you learned that ability. Whatever job you are in right now, you have learned that ability. You did not inherently. No, I did not have the ability to start and run a business or a YouTube channel or a podcast or any of those things, but I learned and acquired that ability. You can learn and acquire any ability. Okay? Keep that in mind. Because verse 16 says, the one who received the 5 talents, the 145 grand, he went at once and traded with them, made a profit, and gained 5 more. So he doubled his talents. He doubled it. Now he's at $290,000. The ability to go at once and trade and then profit, that is a learned and acquired ability. God showed this to me as we were studying. He's like, hey, this is stuff you can learn and acquire. Anybody can become the 5 talent guy if they're willing to learn and acquire the skills, the abilities. Likewise, the one who made 2 went and made a profit and gained 2 more. But the one who received the 1 went and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. And the one who brought him the 5 talents brought him 5 more, 290 grand, saying, Master, you've entrusted me 5 talents. You've entrusted to me 5 talents. See, I have made a profit and gained 5 more talents. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful and trustworthy over a little. I like that. I like that this master sees 145 grand doubling to 290 as a little. 290 grand, that's not that much. That's a little bit. All right, you need to be thinking that way as well. I will put you in charge of many things. Come, share in the joy of your master. Well done, good and faithful servant. It goes on for the guy with 2 talents, saying the same thing. Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I've made a profit and gained 2 more talents. His master said, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful and trustworthy over a little. Right? 116 grand after he doubled it. Over a little bit. Good job. I'm going to put you in charge of more. I can see that you were trustworthy now. You have done well. You are faithful to me. Are you guys seeing this? The one who had received 1 talent came forward saying, Master, I knew you to be a harsh and demanding man, reaping harvest where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid to lose the talent. I went and hid it in the ground. See, here, have back what is your own. But his master answered him, you wicked and lazy servant. You knew I reaped the harvest where I didn't sow and gather where I did not scatter seed. You ought to have put my money with bankers. Another translation says, the least you could have done is invested my money with bankers. That way when I got back, I'd get my money with some interest on top. So take the talent away from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. Listen to this. For to everyone who has and values his blessings and gifts from God and has used them wisely, more will be given. And he will be richly supplied so that he will have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, because he has ignored and disregarded his blessings and gifts from God, even what he does have will be taken from him. Throw out the worthless servant into the outer darkness, and there will be weeping and grinding of teeth, and it'll be awful. Now, there's so much in there. Please listen to this one again, because this is going to grind against an old belief system that you've grown up with. This is going to grind against your current paradigm when it comes to faith, finances, money, stewardship, and all those things, what you've been taught. See, like I said, if you may not have been directly taught this, but subconsciously you're thinking, I'm not a good steward because I overspent on something. I spent too much money eating out. All these different things. When here, we learn the true definition of stewardship. It is the one who was entrusted with money. That person went and increased the money, made a profit, and then returned it. So it's not the one who goes and hides the talent, who says, I was afraid to lose your money. How many of you guys are operating that way? I'm afraid to lose God's money, thinking that's the good stewardship route. I'm afraid to spend God's money. I'm afraid to lose money. I'm afraid it's going to run out. I'm afraid more won't come. I'm afraid I'm going to spend it wrong. I'm afraid I'm going to do this. That's the person who's wicked and lazy and doesn't do anything with it. God's saying, I've entrusted money to you. Show me you are faithful by increasing it, by making a profit. This is different than what you've been thinking. This is different than what you've been taught. But these are thoughts that no one's challenged over the years. You were actually shown to be faithful. Well done, good and faithful servant. Who hears that? It's the person who increases what God has entrusted them with. The person who hides it because they are afraid to lose it is the one who is wicked and lazy, and even what little they have will be taken from them. Isn't it interesting that he took the 1 talent and gave it to the guy with 5 who doubled it to 10? He didn't take it to the middle guy. He took it to the top guy. The guy who increased his ability to make profit. He's like, I can trust that guy the most. I've got these workers for me. These are profit makers for me. These are increasers. These are increase agents. You guys getting this? Being an increaser for God, being a profit maker for God, is the one who hears, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over little, 290 grand. Let's go put you over much now. Now I can trust you. Let's go do something big. He called that little. You should look at that as little also. He literally says, hey, guy with the one, you could at least put it in the bank. At least you didn't do anything. You just put it in a savings account and it held nothing. It made nothing. It didn't increase, but you did it because you were afraid to lose it. You are wicked and you are lazy, and then later calls them worthless. Pretty harsh. But maybe we should be taking this more seriously. Maybe you've been living your life thinking I'm a good steward because I spend as little money as possible. Well, if you go back to the 5 talent and 2 talent guy, it says he went at once and traded it. That means he learned the skill of trading money, like a stock trader, like a day trader. That plays in. You're not inherently born with the knowledge, ability, or expertise to do that. You have to go learn it. So go learn how to make a profit. Go learn how to increase. Go learn how to trade. Go learn how to go to the marketplace and take money and turn it into more money. That's the one God says, I can trust you. You're an increaser. Because God's kingdom, this whole plot, plan, and ploy is about expansion. We expand the kingdom. We fund the kingdom. We build churches. We fund missionaries. We fund outreaches. We help people, and it costs money to help people. And so there are those of us who have learned the ability because we chose to, who've learned how to increase. That's how you be a 5 talent guy. A 5 talent guy isn't the guy who saves the most money. It's the guy who can increase the most money. God's given us the ability and power to get wealth. Deuteronomy 8:18. And remember, this is interesting in the Amplified what it said in verse 29. For to everyone who has and values his blessings and gifts from God, and has used them wisely. So I see that my blessings and gifts is the ability and power to get wealth from Deuteronomy 8:18. And he uses them wisely. More will be given to him, and he will be richly supplied so that he will have an abundance. I want to be the person who has an abundance. Well, Matthew 25:14 through 30 is showing you how to do that. Here's the profile of somebody. God will say, well done, good and faithful servant. You've increased what I've given you. And this is a big part of behind my increase message. It's why I have Financial Increase 101. And I now have the famous, the Increase Challenge, the 5 days of Increase Challenge. If you haven't done that yet, you need to take the Increase Challenge. It's currently free if you head to theincreasechallenge.com, and it's going to show you how to do all this. It's going to show you the mindsets you have to remove. It's going to show you the action steps that you have to take to experience a life of increase. Because if you experience a life of financial increase, you'll have abundance. When you have abundance, you're supplied and ready for every good work. You don't have to live worried about money constantly. When you're constantly worried about money, you can't give to every good work. You're not showing up like you should. You're not a focused Christian. You're a distracted Christian. Let's get money off our minds by learning how to increase, how to walk in abundance and prosperity so we can focus on what God has called us to do. We can focus on funding and furthering the kingdom. I hope this has helped you today. This is definitely not the last video or podcast that I have on this topic. So make sure you subscribe right now. Hit the notification bell. Leave a like and a comment on this if you heard something today you've never heard before. If this was an aha moment. Into other times I teach this, usually people come up to me after and they're like, I was taught that it was good to be poor. I thought being a good steward means spend as little money as possible. But that's obviously not true now that we know the nature of our master, the way he built his temple, the way he manages his stewards here in the parable of the talents. He expects them to increase his stuff, not just hold on and hide his stuff and protect his stuff out of the fear of losing it. A good manager of God's money increases it. And anybody can learn how to do that. That's the best part. You don't have to say, oh, I didn't come from an entrepreneurial family. I don't have a college degree. I don't know business. I didn't have any of those things either. I have all the financial strikes against me, all the reasons you think that you're not successful. I have all the same ones on me. The only difference was I got willing and I got obedient and I did what it takes, and I'm still doing what it takes, and I'm still learning and I'm still increasing. I'm still working on this stuff and I'm still taking action. You can do these things too. Oh man, I'm super excited. Again, like and subscribe to this stuff because I got more coming out very soon on this exact topic, and we're going to show you how to activate increase in your life so that you too can hear, well done, good and faithful servant. I'm going to equip you to live this life of increase. Again, go to financialincrease101.com, grab the free guide, and let's start your life of increase today. I love you. I'll see you in the next one.